Thursday Night Football. There was a game last night, Browns-Bengals. It was pretty unfortunate for one Andy Dalton. He could not find his teammates. He posted the worst completion percentage in Bengals quarterback history. Browns are now 6-3 and off to their best 9-game start since 1994. So we talk about this game, and I'm sure you saw all of it, Stephen A., even though you were hanging out with the basketball team.
That's right.
What was your takeaway?
Well, my takeaway is that, the Cincinnati Bengals validated everything that I've said about them. I've never believed in them all year long, even when they got off to a hot start, and I don't believe in them now. I don't believe in Andy Dalton. I just don't. I mean, I appreciate the fact that he looks like Richie Cunningham from the old Happy Days in the 1950s, because that's one of my favorite all-time shows. But at the same time, when it comes to the art of actually throwing the football and being the quarterback, he doesn't appear to show up when the games matter most. This guy had a quarterback rating of 2 last night. Do you have any idea? I mean, it's just absolutely awful. So that's just how I feel about it. And I look at Cincinnati Bengals right now. I just don't believe in them. Cleveland has surprised me, pleasantly so, I might add. We'll see if they continue to be successful. But in the end, the Cincinnati Bengals are exactly what I thought they would be. Not very good, no matter what talent they have.
Okay.
My friend, do you remember just a few short weeks ago when some analysts were making the case that the Bengals were the best team in pro football? It wasn't that long ago. Do you remember this? Before the New England debacle? Do you remember? And then what happened? They go to New England and they lose 43-17. Then what happened? At home, they let the Carolina Panthers, who can't score when they're at home, score 37 and tie them. Remember that one?
Right.
They go to Indianapolis and lose 27-0, and they follow all that up by losing to a division rival at home last night, 24-3. Is it possible that the Bengals were as big a mirage, an early season mirage, as we've ever seen in the National Football League?
Possible.
I think
there were
it is.
expectations. There were expectations that you made. There were expectations made about the Cincinnati Bengals all season long. In the offseason, when you look at their talent, they clearly have more talent, it appears, than almost anybody, at least within their division. But when it comes time to show up on Sundays, sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. Now, we know they don't show up in the postseason because in 11 years since Marvin Lewis has been the head coach, they haven't won a single playoff game. Not one. Not one.
Okay.
So I look at them, and even though they've been in the playoffs the last 3 years, I do consider them a bit fraudulent, to say the least. Not because of their talent, because they have the talent. And if you're judging them as individuals, there's guys on both sides of the ball that you should want on your team. But when it comes to what you do collectively, as a unit, I do not believe in the Cincinnati Bengals, and every time the bright lights come on, whether it's against New England in Foxborough or it's last night against Pettin and his team in Cleveland, they don't show up.
But here's the big difference. In previous years, the previous 3 years, when the bright lights came on in the regular season, they showed up because they kept making the playoffs. What did we say in August? Well, it's time for these Bengals, this quarterback, Andy Dalton, who, by the way, got his money in August, his big contract.
Yeah.
That's a damn shame.
Well, it is a shame, now that you look back at it, because I think they were betting on Andy Dalton to be the game manager that one Brian Hoyer has turned into for the Cleveland Browns. I think that last night, Brian Hoyer, your home
Speaking
boy.
of, one
your
Brian
home boy.
Hoyer,
And so last night, the problem was that Andy Dalton went from game manager to game wrecker. He wrecked the game because, again, was it chilly and windy in Cincinnati? Yes, it was.
It was.
That's a home game for him.
I know it's a home game, but did it bother Brian Hoyer last night? Not a bit. So my point is that all of a sudden we're looking at a team that we went from, they've got to win one playoff game to, can they make the playoffs at all? And I'm going to say a big fat no on this one. I think they are now out of the playoffs.
Let me say this. I've said this on many occasions. I'll say it again because it's about accountability.
Well, here we
I would
go.
be the first to call out Jason Garrett when the Cowboys aren't winning. I would be the first to call out
him out when they are winning.
Well, yes, because he kind of deserves it. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is this. In the end, Marvin Lewis, who everybody raves about, we know he knows football. We know he was an elite defensive coordinator. That's how he got the head coaching job, because he as a defensive coordinator, helped Baltimore capture its Super Bowl championship back in 2000. But in the end, what it comes down to is this. 11 years you have been the head coach of a franchise and not one single playoff victory. If they don't, if the Cincinnati Bengals with that talent don't make the playoffs. I was saying this if they made the playoffs and didn't win a playoff game. But if they don't even make the playoffs, Marvin Lewis should be fired before he has an opportunity to leave the office that final regular season.
Yeah. What an embarrassment was at home last night.
It was a bad game.
To lose to a Cleveland Browns team that was missing its top 3 receivers. 1, 2, and are you kidding me?
Yes.
Top 3, and they do a 24-3 on you, and they run wild on you. They rush the ball 52 times for 170. Are you kidding me? That's Marvin Lewis. His specialty is defense. I think Marvin Lewis is in trouble.
And the last thing, Hugh Jackson, former head coach in Oakland.
I like
now the offensive coordinator in Cincinnati, who he liked. It might behoove Hugh Jackson to be quiet about Andy Dalton. Because when you rave about Andy Dalton, and then he goes out and performs the way that he performs, is it not a reflection on you, since you were the one raving about him and you're the offensive coordinator communicating with him throughout the game? If Hugh Jackson wants to continue to have a career in the NFL, it might behoove him to be just a tad bit quiet about Andy Dalton.
You guys, we got to wrap.
We
got to wrap. We'll talk about Brian Hoyer, who is leading the Browns. You guys love that guy, right?